welcome to One Voice Live. This is a space where we talk about One Voice, what it is, and how it fits into the world of singing. I'm your host, Natalie Rankin, and here today with me, once again, I have Alex Zeto.
Hello!
We know and love her. She is a certified One Voice coach. She's a certified One Voice master. So thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Today, I'm very excited to welcome all of you to One Voice Live installment number 48, where we are starting a two-part series called One Voice in Artistry. And today, the part of the series is talking about One Voice in Artistry in the world of musical theater, singing, and musical theater performance. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Before we jump in, I'd like to ask you, what are you obsessed with right now?
Right now, I am deep in the world of The Good Wife, which, if you don't know, is a law show. And I highly recommend.
Mm-hmm.
First season's a little slow, but like once you're in it, it's like some real good TV. I love these characters. I stay up way too late because I'm worried about them. Yeah, highly recommend.
Is it funny or dramatic?
It is.
I've never seen it.
I would say it's a law show. It's like mostly dramatic, but I laugh out loud pretty much every episode.
Oh.
Like there's a lot of humor. Like, and every episode it's like, oh, you're in this? Oh, you're in this. You're in this? Like Nathan Lane, Audra McDonald, Alan Cumming, Tay Diggs showed up last night. And I was like, hey Tay, what's up? Like every actor you've ever seen in New York, Laura Benanti, like everyone is in the show.
Oh yeah, because it's filmed in New York.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really great.
That's really fun. Do you want to know what I'm obsessed with?
I do want to know. What are you obsessed with?
I'm obsessed with the concept of hygge. Spelled Hygge. It's a Scandinavian word. And it's basically the concept of curating coziness and warmth in your home, appealing to every sense. So, cozy blankets and textures that feel amazing, and like dim orange lighting to make everything just seem like an Instagram filter. Yeah. And smells. So having cookies in the oven, having coffee on, or doing a simmer pot. Do you know what a simmer pot is? I'm learning all about them via TikTok. It's where you boil, like for example, boiling water and apple slices and cinnamon sticks and cloves and cardamom.
Is it like just for the sake of smell?
Of smell.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and like making dry air a little more humid, so it releases steam, obviously. But yeah, you just let it simmer for a long time, and it fills the kitchen with like such an amazing smell. I'm obsessed. I haven't done one yet, but I really want to.
I feel like it's the time because it's starting to get cool.
Mm-hmm. There's some good stuff in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm obsessed with.
Great.
Moving on.
What are you obsessed with? Leave a comment below. Like and subscribe.
Yes, like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Sing One Voice. Ask us your questions. Awesome. Okay, One Voice in Artistry, specifically One Voice in musical theater artistry. First, I'd like to know your thoughts on the definition of artistry. What is artistry to you?
Yeah, like, I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this. What's the difference between an artist and a technician?
I mean, for me, I feel like artistry reflects humanity. And that's what just being purely technical lacks. It doesn't evoke... It's not necessarily about like what it evokes from people, but I do feel like anytime I'm discussing someone's artistry or impressed with it, it's because it reflects something in me that I feel is like deeply true and human.
Yes. Yes. Like you don't feel anything by watching someone be really good at something other than, wow, they're really good at that.
Yeah.
Versus watching someone, for me, it's about watching someone have an emotional experience makes me have an emotional response, or at least think about, oh, how do I feel about that thing? Or would I react the same way? Like it gets your own creative thinking going.
Totally.
As well.
Yeah.
And turns on that humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever watch So You Think You Can Dance?
I did.
Do you remember?
You didn't.
I did for a while.
Okay.
I did for a while. When it first came on the scene, I was obsessed with it. And the judges always used to comment on that. Like, we know you're a great technician.
Yes.
We know that you can kick your leg really high. We know that you can do the splits. We know that you can do 14 turns in a row. What are you going to do on top of that?
Yeah.
What are you going to say? What do you have to say? What's the message of this piece? Or like, why do you dance? What do you want to evoke in the audience?
Yeah.
I think that's a clear example of a difference between a technician and an artist. An artist is saying something with it, or having a point of view, having some kind of human experience.
Yeah. And to relate it back to singing, I feel one of my favorite things is when I not forget someone singing, but it's like it's in the background. It's like not the most important thing.
Yeah.
It's like what you're saying and the story you're telling is more important to me than how fierce that riff was, or like how like high you're belting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of a bummer when you see the actor become the singer as soon as the music starts, rather than you see the actor start to sing.
Totally.
Or you see them so moved that they must sing, which is the whole concept of musical theater, that the stakes are so heightened and the emotion is so heightened that we have to break out into song and dance. Mm-hmm. It's my belief that one voice training and one voice knowledge can help us do that. Mm-hmm. So let's get into that. Let's do it. Oh, I wrote down artistry to me is, which we were talking about, creative skill. So adding creativity to the skill. Mm. It's like practicing the piano day in and day out so that you can do it in your sleep, and then putting that emotion on top of it and putting that reason behind it.
Like, these are the notes, but what is your interpretation? Like, what? Yeah.
Right, yes. One of my favorite music directors always says, music is not written on a page. Music is what happens when you play what's on the page. Mm. Music is not written. Music is made.
That's beautiful.
Which I think is stunningly poignant and really applies to what we're talking about today.
Totally.
What do you think that musical theater artists can gain from one voice training?
I just feel like more tools to tell a story. Mm-hmm. So we all have our, what we call defaults, the things that feel like they come more naturally to us, but it's really just what we've spent more time doing. So if I spend most of my time singing in a midweight at a medium volume, and I haven't really practiced heavyweight or lightweight at any other volumes, that means I really only have like one way that I'm telling a story.
Yep.
So by opening up and defining what weight is and what volume is, and here's how you can do it, and here's vocal tract shapings, I now have all these different paintbrushes to tell a story. I was working with a student the other day on Gimme Gimme, and in the very beginning when she's going back and forth between these two options she has, like marry for love or seek the money.
Right.
And by going from a lighter weight on the more vulnerable stuff and a heavier weight on the more practical moment, it's like such a lovely way to just color this like back and forth that she's having and going between. Wow. So that's just like one example of a way that this like very technical sounding thing can become so it translates as passion and what's the word I'm looking for?
Can you describe the thing that you're trying to say?
It's like interpretation. That's what I want.
Ah,
yeah, of the story. It translates into passion and interpretation.
Yeah, agreed. I think that also makes someone's artistic performance or someone's artistry more heightened. It's using that technical tool in the world of artistry and creativity to say, how can I even more fully convey the emotional experience that my character is having?
Totally.
Through my vocal choices.
Yep.
Because mid-weight, medium volume is just fine, but mid-weight, medium volume for an entire song translates as everything I'm saying is the same quality.
Or an entire show.
Yeah.
It's like, hi, I'm the same in every single one.
Right. Which some characters are written that way.
Totally.
And so that's a skill that you need to have. There's nothing wrong with medium volume, mid-weight, but it's only one skill. Mm-hmm. And we want a mixed bag.
Totally. And also, the other thing that one voice can help with, which I feel like so many musical theater performers are after, is consistency and understanding, trusting what's going to come out of your mouth so you can focus on telling the story. And it's not constantly like, oh my gosh, how do I sound? Please don't crack. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yes, I wrote down musical theater artists can gain relaxation from one voice training. When you have all of the coordinations and weights that you want conditioned and built, you don't have to worry about testing it. You don't have to worry about cracking in the moment. You can drop your shoulders and focus on what's happening right there in that moment. If you're singing to another character, you can actually see them and look at them and observe what they're doing. Mm-hmm. You can more fully feel your body in space. There have been so many performances where I feel so connected emotionally in my scene work, and then as soon as the song starts, I feel like I'm singing in a vacuum. Like, my eyes glaze over, I'm a little bit tense, and I'm just, like, still. And then you're like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, all of the creativity goes away because we start worrying about the perfection and the technical side of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And that really takes away from the performance.
And, like, your experience on stage. Like, we do this because we love it. Mm-hmm. And so when we're terrified the whole time, it's like, why am I doing this again? Mm-hmm. Or like before the curtain is up before a show, that feeling of like, why do I do, like, I can't tell you how many times I've been like, why do I do this? Why am I here? I did this to myself. I have no excuse. It's horrible.
Yeah, awful. And we would always rather have that feeling of flying.
Yeah, so good.
I feel like we've all tasted it, and we're always after that, the sweet stuff. The sweet stuff is feeling emotionally connected, feeling like you're telling the truth, and feeling like you technically sound amazing. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, feeling relaxed and grounded. Mm-hmm. And preparation can really help with that. Training so that you don't have to test.
Yeah.
And from that comes confidence as a performer. And in that space, I feel like we're much more likely to feel creative, to feel collaborative, to feel present, to feel like we're not so worried about ourselves that we can start opening our eyes and looking around.
Totally.
And being better creators.
Yeah. I mean, fear is horrible for creativity.
Yeah.
Like nerves and fear, because creativity is like this, and fear is this.
Yeah, fear is Barbie hands on stage.
Yeah.
Fear is not knowing what to do with your hands as soon as you start to sing. That's a clue into, I could have prepared this better probably. And you learn how to specifically prepare for musical theater performance in one voice training.
If that's one of your goals, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, having which we'll get into this in a little bit about personal experience, but there's so much value in having a specific and surefire way to prepare, not only when you're doing your homework during like the rehearsal process of creating your character, but every night before a show, having something to do, having a vocal workflow built into and catered to the character that you're portraying that night.
Yep.
Again, it helps with confidence and relaxation.
Yeah, it's similar to like really professional athletes who know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it before every game, competition.
Yeah, yeah. And it's specific to the sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, basketball players aren't going to be training the same way football players do, because why? Why would you?
They're asking something different of their bodies. Another thing I love about, this is becoming a commercial for vocal workflow, an advertisement. Something I love about vocal workflow is that you can tailor it to whatever sport or whatever type of role you're playing. So whatever you're asking of your voice, you know how to warm up that specific thing. And you're not just doing the same warm-ups for a lightweight operatic character that you're doing for a heavyweight rock and roll character. Which of the one voice theories and or principles strike you as the most important regarding artistry in one voice?
Oh man. I do think they're all important, and I will say one, but I must say that they're all important because anything that you feel limits you technically as a singer will limit your artistry, like the end. So if you struggle with heavyweight because of the resonance move, like resonance is going to be really, the resonance points theory is going to be really important. If you struggle with you lightweight and that a certain song requires that, that's going to be really important. But I'm going to say, I feel like weight theory for me. Because there's something so indescribable, even though weight theory itself is so technical. It's like vocal cord intensity and air restricted, this is heavyweight, this is lightweight. But there's something so indescribably human about what heavyweight does to you versus what lightweight does to you versus like on certain moments, and it'll just, as technical as you get, if you're like, yeah, will you go to lightweight on this word and then come back and do heavyweight on that word, like that's so technical. But when you do it and it lands on certain parts, it's like, oh, body chills. Like, even though it is technical, there's also still that magic that happens to us when it lands in a certain way. So I feel like weight theory for me.
Cool. Yeah, it's the adjustment you gave your student working on Gimme Gimme.
Yeah.
Like it just makes it feel more human and more real. I think if that song were being sung in just a technical way for like a voice recital or something, mid-weight, medium volume would be super acceptable.
Oh, totally.
And like, box checked, yes, you did the song. You technically sang it.
You're like in the style, you sound like a musical theater performer, well done.
Right. And there's so much more to be had.
Yeah. What do you feel like?
Thank you for asking. I think, I agree with you that it's all important. It all comes together to equal optimal liberation while singing and creating a character and creating that specific emotional experience and that specific arc, especially for musical theater songs. But I think one of the most important is vocal tract shaping.
Interesting.
I think even if you have weight built, playing Millie is an entirely different vocal tract shaping than playing Jenna from Waitress.
Yeah.
And this is where, again, I'm obsessed with marrying the scene work and the song work and having them be as seamlessly and as the same as possible. This is where character voice building comes in. So weight is really important for that. You want to be speaking in a similar way in your scenes and saying your lines as when you're singing, but you also want the same vocal tract shape. Another bummer is when someone playing, I don't know, Gaston or something is speaking in a different vocal tract shape, and then when he starts to sing, everything changes. An actor suddenly becomes a baritone, which that's appropriate in a show like Carousel. It's not always appropriate in something like Last 5 Years or something.
Oh, yeah, totally.
That even if the audience doesn't know, like, well, his vocal tract shape was longer and that's why it sounds weird.
There's an inconsistency and like an inauthenticity.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, and now we're singing. Even if it's beautiful.
Yes.
There's a change.
And they can pick up on it. Like something about the way he sings is weird. Even if they love it, they're like, yeah, he's a beautiful actor And he has such a great baritone voice, rather than being fully moved by his whole storytelling ability overall. I would much rather have someone say, the way that you portrayed that character was really awesome. Totally. Versus, your voice is so pretty.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Because one is technical, and the other is about and about what I brought to something, or the way that I interpreted something really touched someone.
I find it really interesting, and I won't speak for all of us, but I will speak for us on this couch, that we're so obsessed with one voice, and we've spent so much time learning about it and sharing it with people, and I think I speak for both of us when I say, like, singing is, like, not the most important to us, like, when it comes to performance.
No.
Like, for ourselves or for other people.
And
I think that's something that would surprise people who knew us and knew what we did for a living.
Yeah.
But it really, as much as, like, we can appreciate a technician who, like, really does the thing, I feel like we are really after the story and the artistry.
Right. Even if we do at times get caught up in wanting to be that musical theater machine.
But I feel like, personally, the reason I want to be that machine is so I don't have to think about it, so I can fly while I'm telling the story. Like, that's my real reason why I want to be the machine. It's not because I want people after the show to say, like, wow, you just, like, sang the crap out of that. It's because I want to not be able to think about it and be completely connected to, like, the other people on the stage, the thing I'm saying at the time.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think I experienced that a little bit differently. It's like the most superficial part of me wants to impress people.
Sure.
And I want to be that musical theater machine so that I always look good and I always sound good. Then in my lucid, mature artist moments, creative moments of getting down to what I really want, I remember that. I'm like, yeah, of course it's about so much more. That is such a calming thing to me, especially before an audition, wanting to show, there's a feeling of wanting to show that I'm good. I want to show you that I'm a great singer. I want to show you that I have range. I want to show you that I can do soprano and belting. I want to show you that I can do all these things. And we forget that they're not just looking for a technician. They're looking for someone who can deliver a performance. They're looking for someone who can be creative and say something with their technique.
Right. This reminds me of something that Michael Maresca said once.
I've heard of him.
Back at school, and it's something that stuck with me. What if we all could do it all? What if we all had access to all the coordinations and all the weights, and everyone could riff, and everyone could have control over their vibrato? What would then separate us is just our interpretation.
Wow.
And just like what we brought to what we did with the notes on the page.
Right.
And that's just such a cool thing to think about. Yeah.
It's extremely comforting. I was at a dance call once, and the most comforting thing I have ever heard came from the choreographer's mouth. And he said, don't worry about getting everything perfectly. We're looking for performance, not perfection.
Yeah.
And I was like, you could have said nothing more perfect to me in this moment when I'm trying to, like, master this dance step. And then he reminded us, all I want to see is character and performance and story. Because at the end of the day, choreographers know you'll have the whole rehearsal period to learn the dance steps. And that's also the bare minimum. The same music director I talked about before also says the bare minimum of your job is knowing the notes and being able to sing the song.
Yeah.
That's step one. Like,
it's like memorizing your lines. Like, duh.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. And you don't get extra points for knowing the notes. You don't get extra points for being able to sing the song. It's what you say on top of that that creates authentic performance. What do you think scientific mindset and curiosity have to do with artistry?
Oh man, I think they have to do everything with artistry. Because it's just like, okay, here are all my paintbrushes now, here are my colors, and now how am I going to use these to tell the story? And that is curiosity and scientific mindset are how am I going to use the tools I now have to tell this story? And then in the more technical vein, if you get stuck somehow, how am I going to work this so I have the paintbrushes available to me to tell the story?
Right.
In the way I want to tell it.
Yeah. I feel like those two specific principles of One Voice really enhance the process of creating a character and creating your performance. And then the building and conditioning and practice of those things enhance the performance. And you have to know, you have to have a way to figure out what choices you're going to make. And scientific mindset and curiosity are like, how do I, that's the creative part. That's the creation of it. Is how, maybe I'll sprinkle in a little lightweight here in this phrase and that will really help to tell this part of the story because she's feeling vulnerable here. And then once you have it all set, you memorize it that way, you train your voice to sing it that way, so that in the performance, you feel free and confident.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I feel like I've experienced this a lot with students and with myself in the past where you know what you want to do, but you don't have it built. So it's so then it's this, okay, well, what do I have available to me? How can I cheat or work around things I can't do? And if you have time, I just highly recommend working through it instead of around it. And so in that moment where you're like, I really want lightweight here, but that feels really hard. If you have the time, again, like work on that.
Right.
Because it's just adding another color to your palette.
If you will. Yeah, I feel like this makes me feel really inspired and excited for this specific time in the world. Not a lot of performance is happening right now.
Yeah.
Which feels really sad and personally makes me not want to practice. My vocal practice is not consistent and completely joyless right now. Because the superficial part of me is like, well, you have nothing to work toward. You're not auditioning for anything. You're not like preparing for anything. There's no pressure on you to have any of this right now. But if in the next show I want to have that mixed bag and I want to have all of the tools available to me, now is the time for me to work through the things rather than work around the things, because I have seemingly all the time in the world to build that stuff and to try new things and to work through something. The stakes are not high. I don't have anything to work toward. I'm not auditioning for anything. I don't have a show coming up. I don't have a concert to do. It's
the
free.
Perfect time, really.
Right. So I'm curious, is there a time that you can recall where you felt like you could deliver a more fully integrated and nuanced performance because of your One Voice knowledge? What is it? I don't want to talk about
it. Well, the one that comes to mind is when I was in a show called Hedwig and the Ingredient Show. I think you know it.
I do.
I'm hesitant to use this as an example because it's weird. I do feel like One Voice helps so much in my artistry. But really what One Voice did for me in that was allowed me to sing the style. So it was nuanced, but really it was the first time I had built new skill sets. Again, like the paintbrushes, like this is the metaphor for today for me.
Yeah.
It just added so many colors and paintbrushes to my toolbox. So I could more authentically and more believably be a rock star. Be like this awesome performer. Because the other thing is, like, in stories, oftentimes, you're told to look at, well, what do other characters say about your character? And in that show, it is said that Yitzhak is an amazing performer. Mm-hmm. So you then have to like deliver that.
You gotta be an amazing performer.
Yeah, but in that role, I feel like One Voice allowed me. There was a lot of nuance and physicality, and One Voice allowed me to help my voice match that.
Yeah.
Especially in the lines, like there are very few speaking lines, but in those lines, it helped me from like coordination to vocal tract shaping to weight to non-vocal cord textures. It helped me sound more believably like this like gruff dude, in a way that was sustainable for that run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would that experience have been different for you had you not had One Voice knowledge?
That's horrifying to think about. It's really horrifying. The resonance points theory, I worked on it for like 4 months before that show.
Right.
Saved my life for that show. Like, I don't think I would have been able to sing it. I would have been fighting for a rough sound without knowing how to create it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe I would have stumbled upon something that was safe and effective or not. And I just don't, because that character has to move from like all kinds of styles, like a really clean like Whitney Houston sound where you're like riffing to like really, really rough, just kind of screamo.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have been, I definitely wouldn't have known how to move from one to the other. I would have just been like, okay, let's try this and like fight for a sound.
Right.
I would guess that I would have had issues like losing my voice probably.
And just feeling limited, I bet.
Feeling limited and confused, and probably like I'm a musical theater singer who's like cheating and trying to sound cool. I probably would have felt like a fraud.
Yeah.
More so than I did, because there's still a little bit of like, I'm a musical theater singer, like,
I don't know how to be a rock star. Yeah. Help me.
Yeah.
Right, so it added authenticity to have the One Voice knowledge that you have. It added sustainability. You sang that show many, many times in a row without feeling rocky about it.
Rocky about
it. How do you think, so being able to reflect on what probably would have happened pre One Voice and what actually did happen post One Voice, how do you think One Voice training enhanced the artistry that you were able to bring to the role?
Oh my gosh. I mean, consistency is a huge one. Just being able to understand what I was doing in each song, physically looking through the lens of vocal tract shaping, resonance points, weight, coordinations, non-vocal cord textures, volume. It was never a question of like, what am I aiming for? It's like, this is what I want. So consistency is huge.
Yeah.
And again, just like opening up different technical abilities that I did not have before that allowed me to more believably portray this character.
Yeah. I wonder if it also, tell me if this is true, enhanced the process of it and made it a more, a freer version of your creativity. Because even if you had a creative idea or a curiosity about something pre One Voice, you may not have felt safe enough to try something.
Totally.
You may not have had the perspective on your voice, knowing how limitless the possibilities can be if you just work toward it and build it. You may have shut those ideas down and been like, I don't know how to do that. I'm not gonna do that.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. I would have said like, that's not within my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
At all. What's actually really interesting is I had a really bad cough going into that. And for most of the show, I had a horrible cough. So I didn't feel as like shoulders down as like I feel like I could have.
Right.
But even more so, like, thank God for One Voice, because even not being at my ultimate health, I could still get through it. Like, I was a little probably swollen. I was like fighting back a cough for like most of the performances. But I was still able to create the sounds I needed to create because I was only using what I needed to use,
Mm-hmm.
and I was limiting things I knew that would, like airflow,
Right.
as much as possible that I knew would irritate. Wow. Yeah, I know.
That's amazing. I feel like it would also, pre-One Voice, you wouldn't have had the knowledge of like, I can still sing,
Mm-hmm.
even though I have a cough. I know that things are going to be swollen and irritated, and I know what to adjust in order to not inflame it even more.
Yeah.
I feel like pre-One Voice would have been like just a freak out, even more of maybe what it was. I know there was probably like some panic there, but that's real life.
Yeah.
That's like, I'm sick, and I also have to scream my face off for this role, and I know how to do that because I have the information.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And I just remember I did feel insecure about it because it's not anything where you're navigating is just like not a fun feeling.
Right.
But everyone in the room was like, it's happening. Like, yes. And so I was lucky enough to have people who supported me in that also.
Yeah.
Which is a gift.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a huge testament to, even if I feel insecure in my ability right now, my physical ability because I'm ill, I still know that I can deliver.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's not my best or up to par with what I want it to be ideally, I know that at the end of the day, I can go in there and do exactly what I need to do the character that I've built, even when I'm sick.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So, what advice or encouragement do you have for One Voicers who are looking to more fully integrate acting and singing and add artistry to their singing and their performance?
I feel like a theme for a lot of my students right now is just going further in each direction. Like, don't be afraid to expand whatever your default is, whether it's vocal tract shaping or weight or whatever it is, a little further, because I feel like we get really safe in our little pocket, but we forget that there's so much on either side of it,
Right.
to play with. And just because you make a sound doesn't mean it has to be the one you stick with.
Right.
So as you're playing with vocal setting, if you're like, and you're like, that's way too light, that makes no sense, great, make it heavier. Like, it's that simple.
Yeah, you're only going to find that threshold by testing it and going too far. Staying in that habitual default place makes it feel like anything else we try outside of that is automatically crazy.
Yeah.
Like, even changing a little bit is like, that feels bad. I must sound like a total idiot or a total, like, a lot of... My students compare themselves to, like, dying animals a lot. Like, I sound like a dying cat. I sound like a goat. I sound like a... The thing that I used to say is I feel like I sound like a screaming baby. Like, that's way too short. Or, like, that's too loud. That's too whatever. I started doing this because I was like, do I sound insane? And I started recording myself and then listening back and realizing, oh, that sounds completely normal.
Totally. That's the other thing is a lot of times we're listening to singers who are with incredible artistry and who are doing these moves, but it just fits so well we don't even notice. Like, oh, they're like shifting into a lighter weight there, and oh my gosh, like listen to their vibrato there.
Right.
And then you do it in your own body, in your own head, and it feels really extreme. But a lot of times it really isn't. And everything feels more extreme, at least in my experience, like in my own head than what's actually happening.
Yeah. You're just trying something new.
Yeah. Maybe
a new vocal tract shaping and you're like completely thrown off and assuming that must sound insane. And just that is unusable. It might just be because it's new.
Yeah.
Alex.
Natalie, so weird.
I know.
She calls me Zeto. Like, I'm Zeto.
She is Zeto.
But on here I'm Alex. And
right.
It's very weird when she calls me Alex.
It's alter ego.
Yeah. It's like, who's that?
And there you have it, folks.
That's really why we brought you here today.
So, Zeto. Yay! What takeaways do you have from our conversation today?
Just that this is the good stuff. That's just what like, this is the stuff. I just feel like everything else, as important as it is to be able to get to this part.
Yeah. It's the difference between good and great. I think it's what we all want. I think it's why we all feel called to be artists of any kind, or to learn more about our singing voice, or to, whatever attracted you to one voice training, or whatever attracted you to musical theater, or acting in general. This is what we want. It's not so we can be perfect. It's so that we can know ourselves better and truthfully portray human experience. To me, it feels so comforting and so relieving, because I remember that at the end of the day, this is why we're walking on stage, not so that we can impress people with our voice, but that we can potentially move people by the truth and authenticity that we share.
It's so interesting. I feel like growing up, I would see a show, or I would like listen to like the Wicked cast recording, and I would just feel so fully, like to the point where when I opened the Wicked CD on Christmas morning, I was sobbing, like such a musical theater kid, sobbing, listening to Define Gravity over and over again, just like, this is what it means to be alive. But somehow along the way, I translated that as I got stuck on the singing. And I was like, this is the thing. And it took me until college, I feel, for amazing teachers to remind me, like, hey, this is what we're doing here.
Right.
To find my way again to like, oh yeah, it's the artistry, it's the storytelling, it's the human part of it. Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And it's the why behind the tools and methodologies and technique and preparation and vocal workflow and vocal setting, and everything that one voice training provides you is to help you build a solid foundation for creativity, for artistry, for storytelling, so that you can build whatever you want. And I think this has been a theme in the quick questions on our Instagram, and also in the last few episodes of One Voice Live. You are limitless. The possibilities are truly endless. And that's what we're really trying to convey here, is you can actually do anything you want.
Yes. You can. I have another takeaway.
Yeah.
This reminds me of a coach session I had with Michael Maresca, like maybe 6 months ago or something. And I remember I was so worried about like how I sounded and whether or not I was like achieving the style, and whether or not I was getting it. I didn't realize I was thinking this way, but whether or not I was getting it right. And the whole session turned into vocal setting, essentially. And he was like, think about what the character's going through. Like, think about, like, when are you feeling strong? When are you feeling vulnerable? Like, it's this, like, push and pull song. And I remember leaving that and being like, oh, yeah, there's no right and wrong. Like, I was so stuck in getting it right and sounding like I was singing the style right and I was in the right weight. And it was like, no. Like, remember, like, you're a character. I was thinking way too black and white. And that's some advice from me, is like, it's almost this thing that happens to me. I call it like one voice morality police in my brain, which is like, what's the most right weight? Like, I'm still like in like curiosity one voice mind, but it's like becoming sneaky. It's becoming like this sneaky like right or wrong thing. And as often as you can get rid of that black and white thinking, and you know what I mean, finish that.
So getting rid of that black and white thinking and moving into the space where creativity can really happen.
Exactly. Going back to the why. Like, why am I saying this? It's not to sound perfect. It's because there's a story going on.
Right.
It's coming out of my mouth, so why don't you do that?
Right.
Why don't you tell that story?
And maybe my interpretation is completely different than the person on the track.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, I have to train my voice to get up to that standard so I can sing it exactly like Jessie Mueller. As much as we would all love to sound exactly like Jessie Mueller, we are not in her body or her vocal cords, and we also have something to say. And let's learn how to say that, rather than comparing ourselves and getting in the the perfectionist mindset of if I'm not doing this the right way, I shouldn't be doing it at all.
Totally.
Going through the song and figuring out the emotional arc, the emotional journey, and then matching up your vocal choices to that, that's creating your own interpretation. That's artistry.
Yeah. I've also had students before where I say, okay, so like what on this pop-up, do you want this to be like a lightweight, do you want a heavyweight? And they'll go, yeah, I think in this song it's a lightweight, but I want to be able to do it in a heavyweight. And I go, wait, do you want it in a heavyweight? No, I want it in a lightweight. But it's almost that if it's easy, it's not, there's this like fear of cheating with certain choices. But it's like there's nothing wrong with making something lightweight. No. Even if it's easy for you. Like that might be your interpretation for that part. And it doesn't mean you can't do it in heavyweight in another moment. But they like need, and I feel that before, it's like I need it to be even in weight. Because that's something I've struggled with, that I almost feel like I'm cheating, even if storytelling wise, I do want it to be lightweight. Right. And that's again the like morality police that I have to like shoo.
And having something to prove. Yeah. Like if I'm gonna be in a room with other singers, of course I want to impress them. Yeah. And I'm not gonna choose lightweight. I'm going to sacrifice the story by belting it and impressing all of my friends with my voice, which is not as fun, honestly, as staying connected to the story and staying true to my interpretation.
One of the best compliments I ever got was from Philip Kawhi.
Shout out!
He's going to be watching this in like 3 months when he's got him. He's binging all the One Voice Live episodes right now.
I love that.
Yeah. Was when he came to see Les Mis with you in Connecticut.
Yes, I saw that.
And it was a weird compliment, but it also like meant so much to me. He said there was nothing indulgent about you vocally. Like you could have done so much more, which is almost like, excuse me, but he was like, you could have done so much, but you just like, you did what you needed to do. And to me that meant like my ego wasn't singing the song.
Yes.
Like I was just like doing what I needed to do to tell the story in that moment.
You did the job. I remember feeling that way too. Especially in a role like Fontaine, people can get so indulgent and so, I'm going to make this song about my voice. It's a braver choice to stay true to the words of the song, stay true to how the character is feeling, and only that. I feel like that show, just in general, Les Mis, is full of traps for actors and for singers. Yeah, staying true to the interpretation and how that character would really be portraying that at that time in the story is cooler.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I feel like that wraps it up for us.
Sure does.
As far as announcements go, please do not forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Comment down below. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at SingOneVoice. And don't forget to tune in on October 28th for the next installment of this series, where my guest will be Jackson Perrin. We are discussing One Voice and Artistry in non-musical theater performance. Stick around for that. Thank you so much for tuning into One Voice Live. We'll see you next time. Thank you.